Hey everyone, it's Drew again, and today we're going to be talking about my top 10 coasters at Carowinds. I've been to Carowinds around 100 times now, and I've ridden each of the coasters at different times, weather, train cart positions, and crowd levels to give each a fair chance. Remember, this is just my opinion, and if you disagree, please tell me why in the comments. I love reading why people enjoy Carowinds, so don't be afraid to post your top 10 and why. Carowinds is home to 14 coasters, and it ranks 5th in the world for most coasters at a single park. This makes it a thrill seeker's dream. Coaster enthusiasts come from around the world to Carowinds to gain coaster credits. Attendance can drastically change how many coasters you can ride, so on some days, it can be quite the challenge to choose how to spend your time. My list will provide the coasters that are the most fun to ride in my opinion, and why you should aim to ride these each time you go to Carowinds. Let's start with the 4 that didn't make the list. First, Wilderness Run basically doesn't count because even with as small as I am at 5'7", this is a challenge to ride. It's clearly meant to be for children, and you can watch parents struggle to ride with their kids on this one. Next is Kitty Hawk. While adults can easily ride this, it's still aimed towards children, and I don't enjoy this one at all. I've ridden it a few times, and each time my head was banging from side to side. It's not intense, not fast, and just unfun to ride. I would almost not recommend you put your children on this one because it might give them a negative opinion on coasters. Next, we have one that might upset people, but it's the Carolina Cyclone. I very much dislike this ride. The seats feel very constrained. This is another ride where you're going to be beating your head against the restraints. It does have a positive of being short and having a history at the park, but I overall do not like this ride, and will only ride this if family or friends request I ride with them. Lastly, and if I were going beyond the top 10, this would be dead last at 14th, Vortex. I think this ride is pure misery. It's like the ride is trying to assault you. You'll be smashing your head at high speeds against the restraints. Being a stand-up coaster, I've had a few instances of the seat not adjusting correctly, so you're just dangling there. No matter how many chances I give this ride, it always disappoints me. It's the only coaster I refuse to ride at the park. My younger brother, who goes throughout the country trying to get credits, says there is a correct way to ride the coaster. But I say if you have to have a correct way to ride a coaster, it's not a good coaster. Now, let's get on to the top 10. Number 10, the Flying Cobras. This boomerang coaster barely makes the top 10 for me. This is the only coaster on my top 10 where I never really have a desire to ride it, but if someone I'm with wants to experience the Twin Cobras, I'm okay joining in on that. I'm not a fan of coasters that go backwards, with the only real exception I can think of being Expedition Everest at Disney World. It's not bad, and it's good for a credit, but I don't find it to be that enjoyable. There are just better options at the park. Number 9, Ricochet. The Wild Mask coaster at Carowinds wins me over, being the first coaster on the list that I truly enjoy. This is a very run-of-the-mill mouse coaster, so if you've ridden one at any other park, you know what to expect. The genericness of this coaster, plus its terrible load times, help put it at the number 9 spot. But it's a great family coaster, and when the line is short, I'll always hop on this ride. Number 8, Woodstock Express. I still have a really hard time calling it Woodstock Express because when I was growing up, it was the Scooby-Doo Ghoster Coaster. This ride has some fond memories for me, and it's a treat to ride once in a while. It's out of the way compared to the other coasters, but it's an exciting ride. I wouldn't recommend this coaster if you are larger, but if you're smaller, this ride can surprise you with a fun experience. Just watch your knees. Number 7, Nighthawk. This placement might upset some people, but I'm not really a fan of Nighthawk. It might be one of the bigger coasters at the park, but I believe several other coasters are more fun. This ride has some of the worst, if not the worst, load time of all the coasters, and it makes the lines look a lot shorter than they really are. It's fun once you get going, but the seat restraints and design take away from the enjoyment. The feeling of flying is just great, but I'm not sure if it's just me, but this is the only coaster where I'm always terrified I'm going to lose everything in my pockets, and it prevents me from truly focusing on the experience. I don't think Nighthawk will be around much longer, so if you want a credit, I would specifically go for Nighthawk. Its coaster type, flying coasters are a dying breed. For regular enjoyment, I feel as though there are just better coasters to target if you're going to Carowinds. Number 6, Hurler. This is Carowinds' biggest wooden coaster. It feels very old, but that can be a positive to some people. It's a pretty rough ride, but that's to be expected out of a wooden coaster. This ride is great the first time you ride it, but after that, I'm good for a while. The difference between the front seat and every other seat on the train is pretty drastic, so if you get the choice, go for that front seat. The weights are never too bad for hurlers, so if you get a chance, I highly recommend riding it. I also don't think this ride will be around much longer before it is replaced by something or it gets overhauled, so get your rides in now. Number 5. Carolina Gold Rusher. Placed surprisingly high as Carowinds' oldest coaster and a classic. This ride has such a simple charm to it, and riding it at night makes it even better. It feels like you took a time machine to what coasters used to be. The only major negative for this ride is the loading times. They can be brutal, but not as bad as Nighthawk, but still terrible. If you have the ability to ride this, go for it, and get that nostalgic feel. Number 4. Afterburn. This is where we get into the main draws for the park. I've been calling this ride Top Gun for so long it feels wrong to call it Afterburn. This is usually higher up on most people's lists, but I'm not as big of a fan of higher G-force loops. It makes the coaster harder to ride multiple times in a row for me, which takes away from the appeal. I still love how it is a unique coaster at Carowinds. Its intensity is high enough to give a good thrill. The lines are usually incredibly short for Afterburn comparatively to the other big coasters, which is a huge plus. This is one of the coasters where getting in a front row seat greatly increases the thrill, so try your hardest for that seat. Number 3. Intimidator. I call this coaster Little Fury a lot, and I really enjoy Intimidator. Every time I go to the park, I try to stop and get at least one ride in. This ride is just intense enough to be incredibly enjoyable, but not so intense that you feel disoriented afterwards. I could ride Intimidator 15 times in a row and not feel broken afterward like Afterburn. To me, this is the perfect example of a 7 out of 10 coaster, and I'm having a hard time not putting it higher on the list, but it seems impossible to rate the other two any lower. Number 2. Copperhead Strike. Carowinds' newest coaster isn't a speed demon, but while it lacks in speed, it makes up for it with inversions. I still can't believe how much coaster they were able to get into that small area. I love Copperhead Strike, and the fact that it was open during all events this year, even Winterfest, makes it even better. You haven't lived until you go up that first loop and just hang there. The only negative about this ride is usually the weights, because it can get pretty bad, but beyond that, you're in for a spectacular coaster. Also, try not to get its theme song stuck in your head. Number 1. Fury 325. How could it be anything else? My favorite thing about a coaster is its speed. This thing goes 95 miles per hour and you will feel it too. This definitely not possibly maybe associated / inspired / themed after the Charlotte Hornets ride is the cream of the crop when it comes to Carowinds coasters. The excitement building up while you go up the chain lift is incredible, and while you're going up, if you look to the left, you can see the Charlotte skyline perfectly, which just adds to the appeal of the ride. The lines, no matter how bad they look, go by fast because Fury has crazy fast load times and capacity. There's a reason people from other countries come to Carowinds just to ride Fury. It's just that good. So, that's my top 10 coasters for Carowinds. So, what do you guys think? Do you agree or disagree? And what are your top 10 coasters at Carowinds? I always love to read the comments, so don't be afraid to share. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time.